an April Fool's poop themed palette made real. Now that is smart. Of course, I'm talking about the new Tones of Turd palette from Glaminatrix Cosmetics. Now, if you don't want a palette with poop themed names inside, then you can go with the grounded version, which is exactly the same palette, just a different name on the outside as well as the eyeshadow names. So this palette was originally an April Fool's joke, but people loved the color story. So Glaminatrix decided to make it real, and I'm really excited about it because I really love the color story as well. And it is just a very very grungy color story, which is right up my alley. And I did receive this palette in PR, and I do have an affiliate code which I'll put up on the screen. This palette retails for $64. It is available for pre-order right now, and you are getting 1 intense metallic shimmer, 4 multi-chromes, and 10 mattes, and these are all 26mm pans. So unlike their most recent palettes from the last year and a half, which those are smaller pans, these are full-size pans, and they are magnetic. Now this matte formula and the shimmers are different from their previous palettes, and I will talk about that in the detailed swatches of the shimmers part of the video. There's a marbled shade in this palette, which is very new to Glaminatrix Cosmetics. It is a stunning green blue flashing shade. You just wait till you see the swatch of this one. It is stunning. And then there's some topper-like shades, for example, Balanced. Solid can be sheared out a little bit, and then we have more opaque shades like Whole, as well as a darker shimmer like Calm, which is also very opaque. So you have a little bit of everything, and I like that you have 5 shimmers to choose from, but predominantly you have mattes to pair with the shimmers. So let's get into the detailed swatches of the shimmer shades and then the 2 looks, and I'll give you some of my thoughts at the end of the video. First 2 shades are Whole and Balanced. Look at how shiny and reflective these both are. Whole definitely has more of a base. It's more of an opaque type of shade. Look at that shine. Oh my goodness. And then Balanced is definitely a little bit more sheer, and this shade does feel pretty squishy in the pan. Feel like it has a little bit of that thickness to it as you're swatching it out. Look at how beautiful my fingers look after swatching those shades. These are so impactful. Whole is a neutral brown metallic. It does have a little bit of a lighter tone to it straight on as the light reflects off of it because it is so shiny. I would call the brown to be pretty neutral. It's not really leaning either way. I feel like it depends on the angle because the reflect is also a little bit like a really pale gold sometimes, so it looks a little bit warmer, but sometimes the reflect is a little bit more silvery, so it looks a little bit more taupe. Balanced is a yellow with some peachy tones in there, and it shifts to aqua teal to blue to purple. It is super shifty, so beautiful. I definitely see a little bit of a lime green in there as well in between, but a bit of that peachiness. Next 2 shades are Solid and Calm. You can see quite a bit of a textural difference here. Solid is definitely a little bit more flaky. Can be definitely, also looks like it can be sheared out. Beautiful green tealish base with a pink reflect to it. And then Calm is more of like a black base multi-chrome with a really vibrant pinkish, almost a little bit orange leaning reflect to it, and the base looks like it's more of a super dark blue versus a true black or like a gray. And Solid does have a little bit of that squishiness similar to Balanced, but I would say not quite as much. And Solid has a really bright pink reflect going into peach and then shifting to yellow to lime green at a really harsh angle. And you can see Calm also shifts to a lime green at an angle. I see a gold in between there. And the last shade is a marbled shade. This is Secure. So it's got blue and gold throughout it. So this will probably look a little bit different each time you swatch it. I love it. It looks very beautifully green. It has a little bit of a brown base, and it shifts to blue to purple. It is so metallic. It does feel quite smooth. And I mean, it is just so dimensional, so beautiful. I love this one. Definitely want to see more shades like this from them. So for the first look, I'm going to prime with the Morphe primer. And taking Clarity, I'm just going to swipe that right into the crease. This is a different matte formula from the previous, most recent palettes with the smaller pans. So I'm curious to see, which is why I want to use 2 different eyeshadow primers to really test it out. But so far, I mean, this is blending super nicely on this one. And I'm using the blending brush from me and Clionadh's collab because this one is more of like a sweep on. So it's not really going to give you full opacity. Next, using the Makeup Shack T63 brush, and I picked up Aligned, and I'm just gonna pop that onto the outer corner, kind of on an angle, and I'm just first tapping it on. And I'm gonna swipe it underneath my lower lash line as well. And then slowly blending it out and just really feathering it out. Definitely want to build up a little bit more. I do want a lot more depth in here, so I'm just kind of packing it on so that I have the most opacity there. Wiped off the brush, and again, small circular motions to blend this outwards. And I'm going to go back to the other brush and just a tiny bit of clarity, and I'm just going to put it on the edges. Next, I'm going in with some Fairnay Pixie epoxy, and I'm just going to put on a very little bit and then tap it out. And using the toothier brush from me and Clionadh's collab, I'm picking up Whole. And I'm just going to pop that all over the lid. The shade is super, super sparkly. So pretty. Oh my god, it is very, very twinkly. It doesn't feel really similar to any of the more recent shimmers in their palettes. It's a little bit more opaque, but still very sparkly, so it's kind of similar, but I wouldn't say it's exactly the same. Here's the first finished look. For the second look, I prime with the About Face eyeshadow primer, and I'm taking Anchored, and I'm just going in with the smallest bit because this shade is super, super, super pigmented. And I'm using the Refer Shoto O2 brush. I'm just popping that right on the... Actually, I'm going to go about a little bit more than a third way of my lid if I was to break down kind of the sections of my lid. And then I'm going to go in with the Refer 14 Mini, and I'm taking Steady. And that's going to go actually kind of all the way towards the outer corner. And again, I'm kind of going in slowly, definitely a bit of kick up in this pan. And I feel like it's not reading as green as I kind of was hoping for it to be. And it definitely, these two shades are just super blendy. Like, I feel like I can almost not control just how far up I bring them. On my viewfinder, it's not really reading green at all, but in person, I do see the green, but it's kind of really similar here. So I'm definitely gonna go in with a clean brush and some setting powder. I'm just gonna be using this Kaleido setting powder, and I'm just gonna bring that underneath my brow. Picking up Patience, and I'm popping that onto the outer corner. And just kind of getting it down first and then working it into the crease and just blending it up and out. I do feel like I noticed something with this dark brown, and I'm noticing the same thing with this dark green, is that it's really just blending so smoothly that because of that, it's losing a little bit of its initial opaqueness where I placed it down. So just like on the other side, I had to go back to re-intensify it. I do feel like I have to do the same here. You can kind of see that it's just smoothly blended out, but it's not dark green. So I'm picking up Patience, and I'm actually picking it up on this Blend Bunny B2 brush so I can really stamp it down and just get it to be most opaque. And that already re-intensified it. I'm just gonna go back in, just feather a tiny bit this edge here. And I do actually wanna bring Anchored down onto my lid, but I do have that base down there. I'm just kind of blending it all together. And now it's time for shimmers. I think I'm just gonna use my fingers. We'll see. I think I definitely wanna use Solid. And this is beautiful, beautiful shifty shade. And I'm just popping that onto the center of my lid and kind of feathering it out into the outer corner. A little bit on an angle. Ooh, that is so, so sparkly. It actually doesn't feel squishy now that I'm applying it. It felt very dry to apply, which makes me really hopeful because I was afraid that these were a little bit too emollient and I would have creasing issues. And then as for, I do want to use Balanced for sure. So Balanced does also pick up a little bit flaky. This is the Refer 26 brush, and I'm going to mist it with a little bit of the Carla Cosmetics Potion, Fix Potion, Mist Potion. I can never remember what it's called for some reason. And I'm just going to swipe that up in here. This is a squishy shade, so we'll see how this kind of will stay on the lid. I do have to wear test it. I'm just kind of swooping that up, and I'm kind of hugging the shade I put in the center of my lid. Here's the second finished look. Again, I'm really happy to see that this palette was made real. This color story is so beautiful. It's definitely a little bit more fall leaning. And of course, you can wear whatever tones of shimmers and mattes you like any time of the year. But I definitely see myself predominantly reaching for this come like end of August, heading into September. It is just a grungy dream. I love the olivey tones, the pukey green, the mustard yellow, the dark forest green, and then a burgundy. I feel like it's a really beautiful color story. The only comment I have on the color story is this white. I do feel like it kind of sticks out a little bit. I would have preferred that shade to be just something else to go further with the color story. And I do really like that there's two deepening up brown mattes because one of them is darker than the other. So I think you get the versatility for if you want a little bit more of a smoky eye, a little bit more of a deeper outer corner or not shadowing, etc. Versus some days maybe you just want to deepen up a little bit. So it gives you that option. So I do really love that. I also really love that these two shades are a little bit more on the darker side as well, because I love me some deepening up shades for sure. I definitely noticed the mattes were different, and I feel like they're a little bit different even just like within the palette. Specifically these two shades feel, and it could be probably because of the tones that they are, but these felt a little bit more powdery, a little bit looser pressed, and definitely very opaque, specifically anchored. And I also noticed a little bit more kick up specifically in those two pans. As for the darker mattes, I could immediately tell that they felt a little bit different from their most recent palettes because of the way that they put down and then blend out. They really just blend out super smoothly, but you do have to go repack them on to re-intensify them because of how easily they blended out. Something that's a little bit different from their previous darker mattes from my personal experience at least. Definitely something I noticed. If someone had given me this palette and I had no context about anything about this palette and someone was just like, here, try this new Glaminatrix palette, and I had no idea that it had different mattes and shimmers, I would have definitely thought that the mattes felt a little bit different. Not meaning different in a negative way. It's really just the way I was working with them. As for the shimmers, they're also different in terms of the way specifically balanced and solid feel, because they were definitely a little bit more squishy in the pan. They moved around a little bit. They were a little bit more kind of like a flakier size versus like a piecey texture from their more recent palettes. So I definitely feel like these shimmers seem to be a different formula. That being said, Whole I feel like is very similar in terms of just how intensely sparkly it is on the lid. It's a little bit more opaque, but that one reminds me the most in terms of the way it looks on the lid to their most recent shimmers in their palettes. Now I do recommend a tacky primer for sure with pretty much majority of these shades. Maybe not Calm necessarily because it is kind of the least sparkly. It's just like a really beautiful, more smooth metallic. So if you have hooded oily lids and you tend to have fallout issues, definitely recommend a tacky primer. I'm curious to see the wear time on these two shades on me because they did feel squishy, but when I used solid on the lid with my finger, it did not feel oily at all. It didn't spread oily. So I'll keep you updated on wear time with these because their most recent palette shimmers are some of my most favorite shimmers of all time. And one of the main reasons being that they're not squishy, they're not overly emollient, they are just super sparkly. I'm not sure if the change of formulation is just for this palette because it wasn't a planned palette for this year. So I'll definitely think about that in the next launch. So the marble shade is so stunning. I cannot wait to use it. It's really interesting. I feel like there's some marble shades sometimes that once I swatch them, I'm like, oh, okay, it just turns kind of beige and it doesn't really have a shift anymore. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I could have done without it in the palette. But in this palette, I absolutely love it in here and I think it's so stunning. It is super shifty, and the way it mixes and the type of pigment that's in here, it's so ultra sparkly and it's just so beautiful. So definitely excited to use this one on the lid. To me, this is an exciting marble shadow. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this palette. Are you picking up the grounded or are you picking up the tones of Turd version version. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this video and you like this kind of content, I will have some similar content up on the screen for you. And thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.